Hunger in Missouri is bigger than any one of us alone, but it's not bigger than all of us working together. Feeding Missouri is the partner state association for the 6 Feeding America food banks in Missouri. Together, the Missouri food banks make sure that hungry Missourians in all 114 counties and the city of St. Louis have access to healthy, nutritious food on a daily basis. Feeding Missouri's mission is to educate, advocate, and develop resources for Missouri food banks to end hunger in our state. The 6 Missouri food banks are able to collect and distribute millions of pounds of food each year, beginning with a network of 6 large warehouses. These warehouses, located in Springfield, Kansas City, St. Joseph, Columbia, St. Louis, and Sikeston, are the hubs where food is sorted, repackaged, and distributed out to our partner agencies. All of the warehouses have giant refrigerator and freezer sections to accommodate perishable items like milk, meat, and produce. The warehouses are staffed with efficiency experts who work tirelessly to quickly get food to the people who need it. Missouri is above the national average for households suffering from food insecurity, but your support can change that. Whether you have money, food, or time to share, it is needed. When you support Feeding Missouri, you're impacting families across our state. We can end hunger in Missouri, but only if we do it together.
Hello and welcome to In the Know with AARP Mo. I'm Diane Hall and I'm a Community Outreach Director for AARP Missouri. Did you know that it's Hunger Action Month? Today we'll be talking to Melanie Hickcox from Feeding Missouri. As we saw in the video, Feeding Missouri is a coalition of the 6 Missouri food banks working to provide hunger relief to every county in our state. Thanks for joining us, Melanie.
Thank you for having me, Diane.
We are so happy to have someone here from Feeding Missouri because AARP wants to connect Missourians to the resources and services that they need, whether it's how to protect yourself from frauds and scams, resources for caregivers, or maybe a little extra help during the pandemic. And that's where Feeding Missouri comes in. They know what it means to be food insecure and how to help people in need. Today, we're going to be learning about SNAP and how that program can benefit Missourians. But first, Melanie, can you tell us a little bit more about Feeding Missouri? I saw in the video that Feeding Missouri works with Harvesters, which is the food bank we have here in Kansas City. But how does that connection work? How does it all fit together?
So what was stated in the video there, we talked a little bit about Feeding Missouri as a coalition of the 6 food banks across the state. We do work with all 114 counties and the city of St. Louis. And our mission is really to educate, advocate, and kind of develop resources for Missouri food banks to end hunger in our state. And as I mentioned, the 6 food banks, we have Central and Northwest Food Bank, Harvesters that you mentioned, St. Louis Area Food Bank, Southeast Missouri Food Bank, Ozarks Food Harvest, and Second Harvest Community Food Bank. So we also work with disaster preparedness and relief. We've been working closely with the National Guard during COVID-19. That's been a real critical partnership and resource for our food banks. And then we're also a member of Feeding America, which is a national organization that works with over 200 food banks. So we really work with all of these food banks together. They all kind of make up Feeding Missouri. That's kind of how the program works. Feeding Missouri is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and our board is comprised of the food banks CEOs of all of our food banks across the state.
So it's a food bank, and this is something that I think people, and sometimes I even forget now, and I've heard it before. What is the difference between a food bank and a food pantry?
That's a good question. So a food bank is a warehouse where millions of pounds of food and other products go out to the community. A food pantry, on the other hand, is an individual site that distributes the food directly to those in need who reside in a specific area. So a food pantry is a member agency and obtains food from a food bank, essentially. So both food pantries and food banks share the same commitment. They're trying to provide food to those in need.
Okay, so you're kind of wholesale, they're kind of retail, but it's all nonprofit.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So speaking of being nonprofit, if you're nonprofit, how are food banks funded?
So food banks are funded through donations, grants, and there's also reimbursement contracts that are available through the state, through the Department of Social Services that we have. There's also federal funding that comes through for some of the commodity programs that we have at the food banks. So those are some of the different ways that we receive our funding.
Okay, so the pandemic, this is a thing that I think has impacted so many people in all economic areas of life. Has it increased the asks for Feeding Missouri, and has it impacted food security?
Definitely. The food pantry demands have really skyrocketed recently. There's hundreds of thousands more visits to food pantries and agencies, and there's millions more pounds of food that has been distributed throughout the state since the pandemic. So definitely we have seen a huge increase in need across the state with food insecurity, unfortunately.
And how are you kind of upping your game to meet those needs?
So it's very challenging. Like I mentioned, we try to utilize partner agencies like the National Guard. That has been something that has been just really critical for having us continue to help people that are in need. Really just trying to get as many donations as possible, which is hard right now because a lot of people are not donating. They don't maybe have the resources to donate, so it's even more challenging when you put that on top of it. So it's definitely been very challenging few months, several months.
Yeah, and it may not be letting up for a while.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So, talking about some financial issues that impact Feeding Missouri and food banks in general, probably. A lot of Missourians, I think, are in similar situations. They're having some economic crunches. I know for a lot of older Missourians, they depended on the low-cost, nutritious meals that they maybe got at a senior center once a day, and now they're not maybe able to come together in a lot of places. Has that also impacted kind of what you're seeing in food banks and food pantries?
Yeah, definitely. We've got places like senior centers and homeless shelters and soup kitchens and things like that, where people would go in and typically in groups come in and get food, hot food. That's definitely been an issue, much more difficult due to COVID-19. So more individuals are having to utilize the food pantries to supplement meals. Also, though, there are several, senior centers that are closed, but a lot of them are still able to serve food, which is something that's a great thing that they've been able to do. But the senior centers themselves are still closed. Most of them are.
Yeah, absolutely. I would. Yeah, it's an at-risk population who would be there, so I'm sure they're having to alter how they do everything, as hospitals are, really.
Right.
Something that is kind of related to that's probably not your area, but maybe you know a little bit about it. Meals on Wheels. I know that's a lifeline for some of our older Missourians. Are they still delivering meals?
So, yeah, I'm not real familiar with the Meals on Wheels right now, but I do know that they are still operating and delivering meals. I think that it's difficult, though, again, with volunteers, getting volunteers on board. That can make it very difficult right now with COVID-19. But those that are still volunteering, volunteer drivers, they're able to go out and provide the hot, nutritious meals to those people with limited mobility. So yeah, it's definitely a lifeline for many people, the Meals on Wheels program.
Yeah, I see some things. I've seen, things on the news about the Meals on Wheels program and how the volunteers are socially distancing and they can't, give the hugs that they normally do, but they are still delivering food. I just kind of wondered if the number of volunteers had cut down, but we'll have to find that out and maybe put it in the comments. I'll try and see if I can find out on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
For the people that aren't getting those, what they call congregate meals, I think, at a senior center, or maybe who are not getting the Meals on Wheels delivered, there's an option to do SNAP, right? And I say SNAP like, whoo, everybody should know that. But can you share a little bit more about what SNAP is and how it works? And is it the same as food stamps that we used to hear about, or is it something different?
SNAP, very good question. SNAP is called what it stands for, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And basically that's the name that replaced food stamps. So it is exactly the same program. They just changed the name. It's a federal program, as most people know, that helps millions of low-income Americans put food on the table. SNAP provides benefits to eligible individuals and families via an EBT card, electronic benefit transfer card. So this card is used like a debit card to purchase eligible food items at authorized retail food stores. So that's definitely, SNAP is something that people should really look into if they're in a situation where they are not having enough food. They're feeling that they're in a food insecure situation. The program really is important in helping lower income adults to afford nutritious food so that they can stay healthy as possible. And with financial assistance, meaning SNAP, seniors won't be forced to make some of those dangerous trade-offs that they make, like skipping meals or skipping medication, which those things happen all too frequently, unfortunately.
Now we have a little question that's come in from our comments out there, and it's an interesting one. Is the CARES Act helping with the services that you guys are providing?
I need to look into that a little bit. Yes, they are, but I'm not exactly sure in what capacity. But I do know that we have received funding through the CARES Act. But I can look into that and get the exact information and share that back with you.
Absolutely. And so we'll put that in the comments on the video so that anybody who is interested can find that. But that was a great question. Thanks to you.
Very good question.
Put that in for us. So back to SNAP, which is kind of our main thrust for today in Hunger Action Month and how to get access to SNAP. What are the eligibility requirements?
So SNAP is based on household size, income, assets, and then deductions. So people who are 60 years of age or older, or who are disabled, generally those are receiving SSI or SSDI, need to only meet the net income limit. So which that is household income after deductions are applied. So must be at or below the poverty line. People under 60 have to meet the gross income requirements as well. So net income or assets must fall below certain limits. And also though, households with elderly members or someone who has a disability can have assets up to $3,500 or less. So that's a little bit higher than those that are under 60 or don't have a disability.
Okay, so it's based on more on income and household size and different income for different things, but it's not based on age or anything like that. It's strictly income and how many people are in the house.
Exactly.
So let's say somebody wants to get SNAP benefits because so many folks right now probably are in need. How do they apply for that?
So there's several ways that people can apply for SNAP benefits. One, there's a couple of phone numbers that people can contact. We have a phone number, and I can give those off in just a moment. But also we have just contacting any of our 6 food banks. Since all of our food banks work in the SNAP program, any of them will be able to provide assistance over the phone. And I think that's really important, that people don't have to worry about going out and standing in lines or even leaving their house. They can go ahead and apply for food stamp or for SNAP right over the phone and in a pretty quick manner. It doesn't take very long to apply at all. So another option is going to agencies or local food pantries and just checking to see if they provide SNAP assistance, because we work with several different pantries and agencies. We train them to actually provide SNAP assistance to people that are coming in. Unfortunately, not every single agency that we work with, but several were able to assist in that way. And sometimes it's maybe just a referral that you go and talk to someone at the pantry and let them know that you want to apply for SNAP, and they may give you a referral to call one of our staff at the food banks. So that's also another option. There's also going to just the DSS website, go online. We're lucky to have an online website, SNAP application. And that website is it's apps.dss.mo.gov. So that's just another option. And the people that I was going to give you the phone numbers too. So the phone numbers to call, there's a toll-free number, which is 877-653-9522. That phone number is run through a call center in Kansas City at our Harvesters Food Bank. Or you can also call 573-355-1204. And that's actually Feeding Missouri's phone number for SNAP assistance.
Okay. So I've got a question that came in. What is the general amount of money one person usually receives?
So that's a good question. It does depend a little bit on how much income someone has. So if somebody comes in and has no income at all, the maximum amount of benefits for one person is $194. Typically, if you are in a senior situation, an older adult, a lot of times the average amount is about $125 a month. So a little bit lower. It can be a little bit lower, but I always tell people that even if you're only going to get $20 or $16, which is the minimum amount, it's still going to help provide food and put food on the table, and every little bit counts. So I still encourage people to apply, even if they're concerned that they're going to get a low amount or a lower amount.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Every little bit contributes. Everything helps. Now, let's say you do apply for SNAP. How long does it take from when somebody calls you and gets an application in and they get SNAP benefits?
So it can take, so it really varies. So some people are in situations where they consider them emergency food stamps. So if you're qualified as emergency food stamps, which one of the questions that they ask for to determine if you qualify for emergency food stamps is if you receive less than $150 in income for a month. So in that, if you answer yes to that question, then you're considered, emergency food stamp situation. And so more than likely you will get the benefits within 5 to 7 days. Wow. So pretty quick turnaround. DSS will call people within 3 days for a phone interview after they receive the application. And then it should be 5 to 7 business days before the application is approved. Now, if you don't qualify for emergency food stamps, it can take up to 30 days, especially with the pandemic going on and so many people applying for food stamps right now. It can take a little bit longer, but usually it's even quicker than that. But that's the maximum amount of time that they have to process the application.
So I guess I'm thinking about some of the people that I have worked with. At one point in time, AARP did a lot of programming with grandparents raising grandchildren. And these are people who a lot of times were on a limited income because they were retired. So they just had Social Security and maybe any savings, or if they were really lucky, some sort of pension, but a lot of them did not. And so suddenly they have a child to raise in addition to, taking care of themselves and their housing and all that. And as we all know, kids are not cheap, but even with all of that and even understanding all that, grandparents raising grandchildren were really reluctant to take that benefit. A little bit about what we can say to people who see SNAP as a charity or a handout, something that they probably shouldn't apply for.
Yeah, it's really difficult and unfortunate that people think that, and it's because there's so many myths and misconceptions out there. I think really just correcting those myths when talking to people about the program and those misconceptions about the program, educating people about how the program actually works and how easy really it is to apply and get those benefits. Another thing is if you're a senior, you only have to recertify or reapply every 2 years. So sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to have to go to the food stamp office, many times, and I don't want to do that. So that's another thing that just kind of goes along with educating people about the program. And then, just the fact that people have been paying in to these benefits for their whole life. So there's no reason why they shouldn't be utilizing SNAP benefits when they need a little extra help. Sometimes people think that they may be taking away food from someone else. That's a common misconception, and that absolutely is not true. There is plenty of funds available for SNAP since it's a federally funded program, and so there's no taking away foods. If anybody who qualifies and is eligible will receive the SNAP benefits.
Well, that's good to know. And I think that's one of the things that you just said is one of the things that I always used to say is, you wouldn't pay money into the bank and save money and then not take it out. And I think it's the same thing if you've worked your entire life and you've paid in through your payroll taxes and all those sorts of things. There's no reason you shouldn't take it out. Now, it looks like I maybe pushed a button there. Someone is asking, can grandparents raising grandchildren receive SNAP? I guess the main question that probably that's trying to get at is if a grandparent is raising a grandchild so they have an extra person in a household, does that play into the SNAP figuring?
It does play into it. And basically, if a grandparent is raising a grandchild, they will more than likely get more food stamps because they, have another person in the household that doesn't necessarily have income coming in because it's a child. So that extra help and benefit from SNAP definitely is important for grandparents that are raising grandchildren. I would encourage people to apply if they think that they might be eligible for the program and those kinds of situations.
Now, a lot of people are maybe a little bit reluctant to apply for the SNAP benefits, but I think a lot of older people and maybe quite a few younger people as well are also reluctant to go take that EBT card and go into a grocery store because they may have a health factor that makes it risky for them to go out and about in the pandemic. I think I read somewhere, getting ready for this little chat that we're having, that SNAP can be used on some online grocery stores. How does that work?
Yeah, that's correct. So they actually just released this information. The USDA just approved for at least for Missouri. I'm not sure about other states, but online grocery shopping at Amazon and at Walmart. And then also there's several Hy-Vee locations across the state, not every one, but several of them that also will accept EBT cards. So basically, you're just going online and using your EBT card just like you would if you were at a grocery store, as long as you're buying approved food items, SNAP items, then you definitely can go online. One of the things about that is that they don't pay for, SNAP doesn't pay for delivery fees. So I did want to include that because sometimes there might be someone, maybe wants to go online at Hy-Vee and have something delivered, and there's a fee associated with that they'd have to pay that out of their own pocket, not with the SNAP dollars. So that's the only kind of caveat with the online orders. But yeah, it's a really great service that has been implemented here recently.
We got another question that's come in from people watching on Facebook. It says, if your only income is Social Security and it's $1,200 a month, would you be eligible for SNAP?
More than likely you would be. You probably would get kind of a lower amount of SNAP benefits just because our maximum gross income amount is, I believe, $1,354. a month, so that's very close to the $1,200, but that you still would more than likely be eligible, even if you're receiving just the $1,200 a month. That's a good question.
So back to the grocery stores and not wanting to go in and trying to be safe if you're maybe older or you have some sort of underlying condition. What about using SNAP for the grocery stores that you order online, but then you can drive to the grocery store and do a no-touch pickup where they just put it in your trunk? Does that work with SNAP? That might avoid that delivery fee as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that is probably a really good option to use. But yes, you can do that just like anyone else who orders online. Even with your EBT card, you can go online, order your benefits, or order your groceries, and then go pick up benefits, and then go pick up your groceries without having to deal with anyone other than just having them put those groceries in your car. So yeah, definitely, that's something that would help avoid having to pay any kind of delivery fees or anything like that.
Yeah, kind of halfway between the two options, which is not a bad idea.
Exactly.
Now, we've talked a lot about people being reluctant to apply for benefits, and I know because of the pandemic, there've got to be folks who have never needed food assistance before that now need help, and that's kind of tough for a lot of people to do. Can you share some of the ways that SNAP has made a real difference for people and has been that lifeline?
Yeah, I've talked to many people, obviously, over the last several months and before as well, but specifically since the pandemic has hit. And it's really hard for people to kind of admit that they need help a lot of times when they're in a situation where this is the first time ever that they've been in this situation. I recently spoke to a senior that he and his wife ran a small trucking company, and basically the pandemic just shut down his operation. And he was still waiting for unemployment, and it had been like 7 weeks or something like that. So he was really at a point and had waited a long time before he decided to call to apply for SNAP, because he was hoping that unemployment would come through. But he was having to borrow from other family members to help pay rent. This was the first time that he was, like I said, applying for food stamps, and he was very apprehensive about it. And really, I just explained, how the program works, like I've talked about here today, that it's there for people that are having a hard time and just need some extra help, and that receiving the SNAP benefits would alleviate some of that pressure that they're feeling right now, that with that money being tight and being in a situation where you no longer have your source of income coming in. So yeah, there's definitely it's a tough situation for a lot of people right now.
And if asking for help with food assistance is a hard choice to make, are you finding that people are struggling with more than food?
Yeah, I would say definitely. Many people that are in situations where they're struggling with hunger are also struggling in other areas of their life. So a lot of times, job loss, reduction in hours, paying for housing, homelessness. There are different health concerns and disabilities and things like that. A lot of times people that are in a situation where they're struggling for food are kind of in a crisis type situation. So, and that's why it's so important for people to feel comfortable applying for this program that is so helpful. Because generally there are several other factors that are going on that they're trying to manage. So it's not just that they're food insecure, it's that they're not able to, pay for rent, or they're not able to pay for medications right now, things like that. So SNAP is really there to help alleviate the hunger aspect of it.
Takes one thing off the table that you have to worry about a little bit, or can help.
Right.
So speaking of help, I've got your website up on our screen right now, but are there other agencies or groups where you would recommend people to go for help beyond food assistance?
So people can always contact 211, the United Way, for assistance. That's generally kind of where the food banks will send people if they're needing assistance with things other than food. They've been great to work with and just seem to have every resource out there available to them and to share with people. So I would suggest calling 211 for that kind of help.
Yeah, 211 has a lot of resources that they can connect you with, and I totally agree with that. It's a great resource.
Definitely.
We are running right at the half-hour mark, so we're about out of time. Melanie, do you have any final thoughts about what people in Missouri need to know about Feeding Missouri?
I think the biggest thing is just that helping our food banks with Feeding Missouri is obviously our goal is to help our food banks, and they really cannot feed hungry Missourians without the help of other people. And so there's several ways that people can help. They can give money, they can give food, and then they can educate others about food insecurity. And I think those are really important things. Also, advocating for food insecurity, advocating for the SNAP program. You can always contact your legislators to help advocate for SNAP right now, which is something that we are advocating for at this moment during the pandemic, to increase SNAP benefits by 15%. So I think that really just being able to advocate for people and being able to be there and provide any kind of resources that you can to help hungry Missourians.
Excellent. I absolutely. The more people that we can keep safe during this time. Melanie, I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and information about SNAP and the resources that Feeding Missouri provides. And thanks to our viewers for joining us to learn about SNAP. Please share this video with people who might need it. Please share the information so that people will be able to learn about this benefit. And don't forget to like our Facebook page for AARP Missouri or subscribe to our YouTube channel, because you don't want to miss us when we go live again. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.